opened that spreadsheet, my soul left my body.
I had that too, but I switched to pipe dream.
Pull over and give up.
Very interesting. At some point here, the driver moving through from Irvine into kind of the Laguna Beach area, which is, to the west of the vehicle right now. Anyway, as it moves further south, the driver's going to be forced to kind of merge onto the 5 freeway. And then, like we talked earlier, you're on the road to San Diego County and then eventually the border. So not a lot of options. The options are dwindling here as the driver continues heading south. Is that in the favor of law enforcement? What do you think?
It can be. In this case, it's good because the person is staying on one freeway, not transitioning, not getting off the freeway, going through residential neighborhoods, endangering pedestrians out walking or kids coming home from school. So in this case, it's a good thing for law enforcement. It's kind of a contained pursuit, if we call it that.
Yes, it does seem like it's a contained pursuit. But again, I do always find it interesting, and we were talking about how the CHP, they constantly are getting fresh officers in these pursuits where you can see there's 3 officers. I think anyone who's driving can see that there's a helicopter overhead too, so it must be quite jarring. But for this person who's driving this minivan, it doesn't seem like it's really impacting them so much. So I have to say it must seem quite frustrating to be law enforcement to say, come on, just pull over. They do know who the person is, so that's always a reassuring factor that the unknown factor is not there. They know who the driver is. They know that the person is going through something mentally right now, so they are handling it in a different way. But still, it just seems like it's a very civilized pursuit compared to the very erratic, dangerous
ones. Thank goodness, absolutely.
It is, thank goodness. But you also go, like, what does this person face, Scott, or Bruce, when the person actually gets pulled over? What happens?
Well, to touch on what you just said earlier, Colleen, it's not very frustrating to the officers, but what it is it's very taxing. They're focused on that vehicle. They're focused on traffic that may swerve in or out. They're looking around. Hopefully the helicopter above them is calling the pursuit. And what I mean by that is they're giving the direction, the speed, the traffic conditions so the officers can focus on the vehicle and not have to worry about all the peripheral information. But going back to your question, you're looking at, like Scott said, is it a permanently depriving the owner of the vehicle? No, they're going to get the vehicle back. So what you have is a misdemeanor crime, taking the vehicle without owner's consent, and also the pursuit charges and whatever other traffic violations they want to pile on. But yeah, it's a very low-level crime at this point.
Yeah, and it's good to see that the freeway has been so wide open this morning here on a Monday. So now, as I mentioned, we've gotten off the 405. We've merged, as the driver had to do, with the 5 southbound. So now we're on the 5 south, going to be going through the Laguna Woods area into the Laguna Hills and Mission Viejo, still heading south. Scott Reif live at Air 7 right now. 12:13 is the time, so we're nearing an hour of our coverage of this pursuit. You mentioned earlier, you kind of told us that there was going to be an issue with the cloud cover as we near Camp Pendleton, probably 15, 20 miles ahead. Does that remain the case? Are you concerned about that coverage?
Well, that'll be difficult for us, I think, as I look out there down around San Juan Capistrano, and then the 5 freeway comes right down to the ocean there, right past the old San Onofre power plant. And then that's Long Rifle for us. That's the military base, and they probably won't let us through there. They usually make us go a mile offshore, and that wouldn't be possible for us today just because of the overcast. We're not legally allowed to fly over an overcast and VFR flight rules, which we follow. So we passed the El Toro Y. We're on the 5 freeway southbound. There is a sheriff's helicopter behind. We heard some chatter about another spike strip, but they didn't do it. We didn't see them actually physically do it. We saw a couple of patrol cars on the shoulder, but they didn't get out and throw the spike strip from what we could tell. And it looks to me like they're going to be content to follow this individual. Push into the vehicle. What are the speeds? The speeds don't look much over the posted speed limit, maybe up, oh boy. Well, it's going to get it to, it's going to correct itself. It was at 90. It's going to come down, and that looks about right from what I'm seeing outside. Almost 80, and the traffic flow in this area is probably 75 at this time. There's just no volume, so people tend to travel a little bit faster than the speed limit when there's not a lot of cars on the roadway. And so if we open up for a moment, we'll show you. They have a pretty good spacing in between the suspect and the patrol car. A couple of times they got right up behind the patrol car. I think initially they wanted to really get a good look inside, trying to determine whether or not there may be someone else inside the vehicle. But now that they know who the driver is, it would shock me if they don't have some type of established communication, either from them or from someone who knows them. Because, nobody this day and age doesn't have a phone, so more than likely they tried to reach out. And at this point in time, I think they're just going to be content to follow this. They may try another spike strip just so that they can, get it over with a little quicker and get that vehicle down to the rim so they can't drive too fast. But I don't think they're going to be very aggressive on this, considering what we know at this point in time. And we'll be able to follow it for about another 10 miles or so, and then we will actually lose it. I don't think we'll be able to continue south into San Diego County today. We have to get through that area of Long Rifle. They could be active. If they were, they wouldn't let us anywhere near it. And then we have the weather that we'd have to contend with. So we're going to be, we just came out from the El Toro Y, Laguna Hills. We're going to be down into San Onofre, down into Dana Point here in a moment. And there's been really no change. I think you said it's been about an hour. It's hard for me to keep track. But there's been no change for the most part in the demeanor of the driver, the speeds, or anything like that since it started. Mostly in the fast lane, mostly just maybe 5 or 10 miles an hour above the speed limit and the flow of traffic.
Yeah, you just want this driver, this woman behind the wheel, for everyone's sake, just to pull over, give it up, get some help, especially if you have this mental health issue. It's not helping anyone at this point.
It should be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to try a spike strip at Ortega Highway.
Really? Okay,
so
that's good to know.
Wow, that'll be.
Yeah, well, they just put that out. As I mentioned earlier, though, it's really got to be difficult to do a spike strip if the car's in the center lane. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do that. So if they stay on the far right or the far left, the spike strip will be doable. I don't really see, I've never seen a motorcycle throw out a spike strip while the car was moving and the motorcycle was moving. I haven't seen that. If possible, I don't even know. But I don't know how you throw a spike strip out on that vehicle in the center lane of the freeway without them seeing you do it. So it'll be interesting to see if it's possible.
And we know this driver knows how to look out for spike strips because they swerved to avoid the spike strip. So, and of course, law enforcement know that the person does not want to be, they're not lackadaisical. They are paying attention to if there is anything on the road. But they are in the middle. They've now decided to get out of that fast lane, and now they're in the middle part of the freeway. And it is completely smooth sailing for this person. So they are not encountering much in the way of traffic, which is pretty, I feel like that's the story in and of itself, that there's no traffic on the 405. I mean, remarkable. But again, you're watching this, Scott. I can't believe there's not going to be a bit of a bottleneck coming up, because it always seems like once you get to this area of Orange County, it always slows down.
Yeah, well, it's a Monday, and go ahead.
Whenever I'm driving the 405 southbound, it's packed down here. So, but they've got 8 lanes in both directions. I can see all the way around to Dana Point. Once the freeway curves around past Dana Point, I can't really see it, but I don't believe we're going to have any delays at all until we get into that area that we can't cover, because the volume is just very, very light this time of day in this area. So it will be interesting. I think we've already passed Ortega Highway.
No, we have not. I'm following the map here, and so if we're passing Avery right now, Ortega Highway is coming soon. It's going to be about another mile or so. That's going to be right before San Juan Capistrano. That being said, as we watch and wait for that moment, this potential spike strip attempt, Scott, people at home may be shouting at the TV saying, why don't you just pit this driver, do the pit maneuver? You can't do that at this speed. Is that correct?
It's absolutely correct. If you did something like this, that you could not only injure or kill the driver, but you would probably cause an accident and injure other people. I think the max speed on the pit maneuver is like 35 miles an hour. So, and they really don't like to do it at 35. They like to do it around 15 miles an hour. When the vehicle's making a turn, they can hit it on the back side of the vehicle, and then it spins around. It doesn't flip over. If there's any indication that the vehicle is actually going to flip over, they don't want to do the pit maneuver. That's not the intent. The intent is just get the vehicle to slide around. But you can't try justify a pit maneuver in a situation like this. But it's interesting, Mark, you know, if the suspect who shot and killed the deputy was on that motorcycle, and they stopped that by just running right into him. Now, in a situation like this, that would never even be considered. I'm just sort of pointing out what happens depending on how badly they want an individual, what that individual's wanted for, and how much of a threat that individual is to the community. In this case, I don't think there's much of a threat. We don't see any. We haven't heard of any for the most part, and so they're just backing off. But in a situation like you've got somebody who's shot a police officer and killed them, and they're trying to get away, then some of the rule books may be thrown out the window a little bit. They're going to do a lot to get that person in custody.
Yeah, especially if they know that the person is armed and dangerous. I mean, just being armed on a freeway, on a motorcycle, that was a very, very dangerous pursuit, and it was really quite challenging to witness. But again, we saw it was an off-duty officer who then...
There it was.
Did you see it?
I think that was it. We were pulled out just a bit, but I believe that was the attempt. We're coming up here on Ortega Highway, and I saw what appeared to be a CHP that was at the median brake on the left, and I'm not sure if they got it deployed, if that's what I saw correctly, but that may have been it. The tires seem to be up, and although even when they do hit, they don't go out immediately, I would think that if it was successful, we would see something occurring with some deflation.
But this driver is really starting to drive a little bit more dangerously right now.
Yeah, and back up to 80 miles per hour. And that being said, we said not breaking any laws. Well, you are over the speed limit, and as we've seen now for the past hour, this woman is passing everybody on the road, so certainly going faster than the rate of travel around her. You just hope that officers, CHP in pursuit, just can get her to stop, and hopefully maybe one of these spike strip attempts is successful. Every single time it's been in the fast lane. She's been on the left side of the road, but I think that one again was unsuccessful. When available, we're going to try to recue that video and show it to you, see if we can get a better glimpse of how close
you have an
the attempt
eagle eye,
was.
Mark.
We're going to be straight down on it in a moment.
I was saying you have like an eagle eye, Mark, because I feel like I was watching and I still didn't see it. So it really is remarkable. If they got a spike strip right there and that driver avoided it again, it's incredible. This person is driving somewhat in a relaxed manner, but then is quick, little cat-like reflexes to get away from those spike strips.
Let me ask Bruce Thomas on the phone right now, our law enforcement expert, these spike strips, how they are deployed for viewers maybe who don't watch these pursuits all the time. These officers are literally throwing out the spike strip, right? It's nothing more technical than that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. What they have different types. They have what they call a tack strip, which is basically 3 pieces, maybe 3-foot sections, that once you deploy them, all of a sudden it becomes 9 feet. And that's what we've seen them use. They also have other ones which are in like a ball where you'll roll them out. But ultimately, as Scott said, the speeds are just so high that to do any kind of pit maneuver would not happen on this vehicle. But at the same time, now what they're planning for is, what if this vehicle gets all the way to the U.S.-Mexican border?
And what does happen? I mean, from the law enforcement perspective, because she would just drive directly to the gates, what does happen?
Well, and we have seen it. It's been years, but they have gone in through the gates and crossed into Mexico. And if law enforcement crosses the border, they actually will be arrested and confiscated. Vehicles, badges, guns, equipment. And then the U.S. has to negotiate with Mexican authorities to get not only the police officers back, but the equipment back. And I don't think things have changed about that, because you are crossing the border illegally, sort of.
Wow, that would lead you to believe that they probably will not be following this driver over the border. But hopefully we don't need to get that far. Hopefully this person obviously gets good gas mileage or had a lot of fuel in their tank.
Well, if it was a full tank, she could conceivably, of course, make it to the border. I mean, we got on this pursuit in the Sherman Oaks area. Well, when we joined it, it was in the Sepulveda Pass. So it's certainly is conceivable that, they have plenty of time still to drive. If that tank was full. Those are things, of course, we don't know, and you could speculate all day. But, keeping the course, and really for the most part has been in that second lane this entire time. just cruising at 75 to 80 miles per hour, 10 and 2 on the wheel. You know, the two concerning factors here that we've said time and time again, reported stolen and the fact that you have mental health as a contributing factor here. So you wonder, what were the circumstances of how this woman got this minivan, and then what are the circumstances of her mental health, and is she armed? And, which we don't have the information of, is there anyone in the back seat? We don't believe that to be the case, but you got to leave all of those options open. Anytime that we see a pursuit come to an end, you see officers do a full search of the car, and because it's the minivan, because you got the tinted windows, they're going to have to do that as well to make sure no one else is in the car. Air 7 here just going black there for a moment and back on. Scott, what's up ahead? What are you seeing as we're coming up through the San Clemente area?
Yeah, we're in San Juan Capistrano. We're going to be San Onofre here in a moment. As you mentioned, just continuing down the southbound 5 of the center lane. We did get a hold of Long Rifle, and they're going to let us through. You'll see the fog in a moment, but it's actually receded to the shoreline, and we'll be along this stretch of the 5, and we can continue to follow it. I'm not sure if we're going to follow it all the way down into San Diego County and how they're going to work that. I think once that vehicle got to the border, though, more than likely, every time I've seen the border, it's not wide open. You have to stop, and that would give law enforcement a chance, more than likely, to get this over with on this side of the border, but they will not cross. There's no question about that. We've seen just normal driving behavior. As I mentioned earlier, what you're always concerned about is when the suspect gets cornered and they get into a situation where they're in traffic or they just can't continue any further, and then what are they going to do? Are they going to continue to drive erratically and dangerously to get away? And in this particular pursuit, it started in the San Fernando Valley on the 405 the whole way, now on the 5 freeway, and basically there's been no traffic. There's been 1 or 2 little spots where the flow had slowed. That spot where they shut down the north 405 to throw out the spike strip onto the southbound lanes slowed traffic so much that that was ineffective. But basically, we're just continuing. We'll lose the vehicle for a few moments here in the fog. You'll see that in just a moment. And then they'll break out, and for the most part, the fog is receded onto the shoreline. And as I mentioned, Long Rifle, who controls the military airspace as we travel further south, they will give us clearance to go through. If they're active, we have to go a mile offshore. We wouldn't be able to go a mile offshore today because of that overcast that I talked about. We can't fly over that layer. But really nothing has changed for the most part on this pursuit besides a couple of spike strips that they tried since it started an hour and 15 minutes ago up in the Van Nuys area.
And Scott, we do want to let our viewers know in just about a minute or so, we are going to be getting off ABC7, but we are going to continue streaming. So if you're watching ABC7 through our streaming app and all of our streaming sources, we're going to stay with this. If you're on air with us on ABC7, we're going to be going back to regular programming just in about 40 seconds or so. So we will keep you posted here throughout the day, on air, online, abc7.com. For the conclusion, get some clarity on how this thing is going to end. We've had Scott Reif and Bruce Thomas as well on the phone, our law enforcement expert, and we'll have to wait and see if this driver makes it all the way to the U.S.-Mexico border, and what a situation that's going to cause.
What a situation. And of course, you're starting to see the visibility being reduced. Again, we're going to have the very latest, the wrap up on Eyewitness News at 3 o'clock. But again, join us on abc7.com or anywhere you do stream ABC7 for the latest on this pursuit. We'll be right back.
And if you are streaming with us here on ABC7, we continue. Scott Reif, live at Air 7, Bruce Thomas on the phone, Mark Cutter-Robles here, and Colleen Sullivan into the fog. The cloud cover there through San Onofre and Camp Pendleton on the 5 southbound of this driver, this woman behind the wheel of this minivan, reported stolen. Officers have been pursuing this now for well over an hour. We've been covering it for a full hour, and not overly erratic. We have seen at least 3 spike attempts to get those tires flat. Each of them have failed. And you just want it, Colleen, to come to an end.
You kind of want it. Now, it seems like, I think Bruce was saying it, you know, people start getting frustrated because the driver, thankfully, is driving within sort of the rules of the road. They are driving some speeds, but not anything crazy excessive. They are in a Toyota minivan, so they are going to be limited to what the car can drive. They seem to have a lot of gas because there seems to be no indication that they're going to be pulling over. Again, Bruce Thomas with Scott Reif. Scott, you talked about some of the visibility. Are you seeing reduced visibility continuing?
Yeah, that was the one little spot where you lost the vehicle a moment ago. I want to do something, Chad. Just go ahead and come off the pursuit and pull straight up to our 12 o'clock. I just want to give you some perspective. So there's the freeway, right? We'll go right back to it, but it'll give you an idea of what we're looking at. This is the 5 freeway, and that's the overcast that I was talking about, and it receded just off of the freeway. There is a point, though, on the top of your screen where it's going to be underneath the overcast, and we won't be able to see it. Now, let's go back. I know it's a long stretch. We're streaming now, so we take a little more leeway here to try and do these types of things, and we'll go back to the pursuit. But it sort of gave you some perspective on where it's at and where.
All right. Well,
I don't know if your power plant, you've seen that.
Yeah, Scott, we jumped in there just for a moment. We lost you only for about 5 seconds or so apologize. I wanted to ask you this question. We were talking to Bruce Thomas about the situation. Should this make it to the border? In all of your years covering these pursuits, do you remember, have you covered an incident where a driver has made it all the way to the border? And if so, what occurred then?
I have not. We've covered a lot of pursuits that went down into San Diego, and then somebody else took over that pursuit. We didn't follow it all the way, but I used to live in San Diego County, and I changed.
Yeah, bear with us as we are trying to reestablish our contact with Scott Reif and Air 7. But again, I lead you to believe some of the weather obviously is probably getting in the way as well.
And also the point being that we are now into San Diego County, moving from Orange County into San Diego County through Camp Pendleton. No audio right now from Scott Reif and Live in Air 7. We'll let our producers tell us what we want to do as he continues heading south here. We got the picture here of the minivan. Again, it's been 75 to 85 miles per hour, very light traffic throughout the duration of this pursuit through Los Angeles County, past LAX, through Orange County, and now San Diego County. And, you know, that's good to see. You know, had there been more traffic, perhaps more incidents and more trouble along the way, but the driver has been either in the fast lane or the next lane over, changing lanes here.
Right.
Nothing overly erratic, though. Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert on the phone. Bruce, the fact that the driver has otherwise not been erratic behind the wheel, how does that change how law enforcement approaches this and maybe their approach of just let it ride out?
You know, in this case, they are just going to let it ride out. And to their advantage, if this person is suffering some mental health issues, the fact that they're not being pressured to change lanes, to swerve, to go around traffic, that they can pretty much stay in that lane and go straight ahead, works to law enforcement's advantage of de-escalating and decompressing what this person may be going through.
And I want to follow up on the aspect of should this get all the way to the border? And again, I'm not confident that we'd even be able to continue our coverage should that happen. We'll wait and see. But should that happen, we mentioned that law enforcement can't cross the border into Mexico. But with the different jurisdictions for CHP, do we not have a situation where CHP would try to shut down and or block the freeway in that final mile to get this driver to stop? Hypothetically, would you see something like that occur?
Well, you know, as Scott said, you know, traffic at the border always backs up. That's just the way it is. So you're going to see congestion. Law enforcement doesn't train or practice or pursue the type of blockading you're talking about. However, we have seen different tactics and more recently that are kind of out of policy, but they've worked. So would law enforcement maybe do that, kind of stack the deck down there? It's possible.
Yeah, that would seem very remarkable, though. It just seemed sort of like a stunning moment to close the freeway and then be there at sort of like sitting duck if this driver wants to, you know, you really are backing this driver into a corner and you just don't know. Yeah, they're driving sort of, you know, within the rules of the road. I keep saying civilized because we see so many pursuits where it's just so dangerous. This person is driving, not erratically, obviously trying to avoid these spike strips. But again, Bruce, you know, you see a lot of pursuits, and when the CHP debriefs about, you know, when they go over after the pursuit and they're like this, what do you think that they're ultimately trying to pull over a car? So what do you think they discuss on tactics that maybe they should have used?
Every agency in the state of California does what they call a post-pursuit debriefing. In other words, verbally and on paper. And those reports are submitted to the CHP, which has the jurisdiction of the state. So they're constantly reevaluating policies, procedures, what we did right, what we did wrong. We follow this vehicle. Was it safe to do so? Yes. Safe for the officers, safe for the driver, safe for the general public. But if things change, then the tactics, the aggressiveness will have to change with that. So everything is very free-flowing.
Yeah, it would seem like this, but as we're continuing to watch this minivan. Again, our visibility, you can see the fog. The coast has been sort of socked in with fog over the last couple of days, while a lot of the inland areas have been seeing really gorgeous warm weather. But again, we're seeing some of the fog play a factor. But we do see this driver. The driver is sort of getting out from behind the cars, and we're seeing a little bit of heavier traffic. So one never knows what this driver is going to do, Bruce, and I don't think that the CHP is really changing their tactics on this course.
No, Colleen, as you said, it does not appear they're changing their tactics. They're content to stay behind, use the helicopter to call the pursuit if it can. I know what Scott issues with the fog and the marine layer, but in this case, they're very content to stay behind this vehicle, not pressure the driver except for the use of the spike strips, and just allow the driver to go between speeds of 65 and 90 miles per hour.
Bruce, thank you. Stand by for us. Scott Reif, live right now in Air 7. 12:35 is the time as this driver is now moving into northern San Diego County, coming up, on Oceanside and Carlsbad. Scott, it's not often, I hate to say it for you guys up there, that you cover a pursuit this far south.
No, it's been a few times, but it certainly is not often. And a lot of times in the past, there were some microwave issues, but I think we got that all worked out. So now we continue all the way down into San Diego County. And as Bruce and you mentioned, I don't think there's going to be any change in this pursuit until the suspect decides to stop. I'd be shocked if they blocked the freeway altogether to try and stop the suspect. I have not seen that. I did see a vehicle travel in the wrong direction towards the stopped freeway. And boy, that was not pretty, because that individual decided to hit the gas and slam right into the cars that were stopped. No one was killed, but people were injured. So I don't think they're going to shut down a freeway to try and stop this. Hopefully the suspect just gives himself up, but it doesn't appear the suspect has any intention of doing that at this point in time. They're content to drive in the fast lane, a little faster than the flow of traffic, and the volume is even lighter from here on out. I can see down towards Oceanside, down towards Palomar Airport, and we just don't have much in the way of slow traffic, although there will come a time, it looks like, where from time to time we will lose the pursuit because it goes under the fog. But right now most of the fog is receded off to the shoreline. If it would have been a few hours earlier, we probably wouldn't have been able to see it through here. We'll see if they do another spike strip. It would be a little easier, I would think, to do it now because you don't have as many vehicles out there. It was much more difficult, I think, in West LA where they tried it, where you had the vehicle traveling with, other cars and more volume at that point in time. But if they did get somebody in the center median right now, it looks like they might be able to throw out a spike strip because they're in the far left lane. Where in the center lane, that's going to be extremely difficult.
Well, look, we're still about an hour away, realistically, from the border. So there's still plenty of road here on the 5 South to travel. That being said, we just got some insight here from one of our coworkers with many years of experience here at ABC7, and he has seen and does remember an incident where a driver in pursuit made it all the way to the border. However, what they did that time was flood the road with spike strips. That's what he said happened in the past, where there was no way for the driver of this vehicle, of a vehicle, to pass through. They didn't use just one. He said, in his words, they flooded the road. So they'll stop the freeway, and at least would they do that again? We'll have to wait and see. But that being said, Scott, I know you have some limits on how long you can even stay with us up there.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, that's up to the station, right? Just from following some of these past pursuits. I don't know if we follow this all the way to the border or not. They'll probably make a decision on that if it continues. Now, it's interesting. The suspects got into the right lane and come out of the fast lane off to the right. And we've seen now a little movement from going from the far left lane to almost the right lane and now staying in the center lane. So I'm not sure how far we're going to be able to continue on this. The weather could be a factor for us as well. So we'll just have to see what happens. But, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to go ahead and just throw out a bunch of spike strips, stop traffic, at an off-ramp, right, and just don't let anybody on that stretch, and then throw out a bunch of spike strips once you get close to the border. That probably wouldn't be a horrible tactic in this area. You just have to get CHP vehicles well in front of the pursuit, and then try and get everybody stopped and maybe throw something out. But we'll just have to see if that can possibly work or what their tactic's going to be. But I don't think they're going to get too aggressive with this. Like I mentioned earlier, they're probably just going to let it continue until the suspect stops.
Yeah, for the most part, this driver, she's been 10 and 2 on the wheel. When you consider the mental health aspect, you would wish or hope perhaps that she'd be on the phone, there'd be communication occurring. But from what we've seen from that view, we've never seen a phone. So it doesn't appear to be communicating with anybody. If that's the case, it could be hands-free, but we're not seeing that happening.
And you just never know what led up to the person taking possibly one of their family members' cars. You never know if there was an argument. They just went out to grab the keys, went out to the car, doesn't have any phone with them, doesn't really. I don't know if Scott, you did not hear if they were actually communicating with this driver, did you? We just know that we know who the person is. They know that the person's suffering, according to their family members, some sort of mental health issue. But again, you're right. Usually you see the driver on the phone with the phone to their ear, looking up above, looking at the helicopter, sort of making a lot of agitated movements within the driver's seat. But this driver is just steady as they go, just keeping on going, not really being fazed that law enforcement and helicopters are overhead.
Yeah, Jay just told me that it turns out the mother called the CHP, and so that's how this all started. So the daughter, it sounds like, took the vehicle, probably wasn't supposed to. Initially, they figured it was stolen, but it sounds like one of those gray areas to me. It looks like she just took her mother's car, and then this pursuit has been ongoing. So we'll just have to, it's one of those wait-and-see games. We're just going to have to see how this plays out. I'm looking ahead. It's hard to see exactly what traffic may be like. Now, I'm under the impression, once you get down further south, down towards La Jolla, that you hit a lot of traffic on the 5. So we get down towards the 805, you get down into that area, and I think we're going to see traffic stopped. And as I mentioned earlier, that's when these types of things really get dicey. There's actually a little patch of slow traffic coming up here in a moment. But when a suspect gets into a situation, I mean, they've been driving, relaxed may not be the right word, but they've been in the same lane or in the, for the most part, in the fast lane or the center lane without doing too much erratic driving. But when it comes to a stop, that's where it always gets dicey. Now, slow up a little bit, Chris. We're going to start to see traffic slow here. There's one little stretch, and I can't tell if that's a CHP unit. It may be coming up here in the center median. They may try the spike strip here. There may be a spike strip coming up here in a moment. The traffic will stop. It will start to slow, and I see a CHP vehicle in the center median on the northbound side, and we're going to see here in just a moment what's going to happen with this vehicle. But I think they're going to try a spike strip here in a second.
Yeah, and this driver really goes fast, though. They're certainly, now you see them having to slow down. Mark, keep an eye out. You seem to always see these spike strips.
Yeah, the vehicle, the patrol car is hidden behind some bushes on an overcrossing, and I think this could be successful. This looks to me like it could be very successful, although, unfortunately, the suspect can't see the officer yet. They're just trying to get through the traffic. And as I mentioned earlier, that's when things get a little dicey, when the suspect gets into a situation where they can't stop. If they would have stayed in that left lane, the CHP officers are out in the freeway. Open up, open up. They're out in the freeway. They stop traffic, and they're going to get a spike strip right now. They're going to wait until that vehicle, oh boy, this is dangerous. And it didn't quite deploy. I don't think they made it.
And I think did that.
Yeah, so close. And boy, that's dangerous for those officers, too. You don't know what that person's going to do, and you're out in the roadway, and you're throwing that spike strip. I mean, obviously, you don't want to get right in front of the car, and it didn't just quite completely deploy, unfortunately.
I just wonder what would have happened if that person were actually in that fast lane.
Well, look, Scott, you spoke to it. You don't know what the driver's going to do. You don't know about the other drivers on the road. So credit to everybody right there to come to a stop, to let those officers do their work. They don't have protective gear on. They're out there in the middle of the freeway. And Scott, I want to give you credit as well. About an hour ago, you were running through the possibilities of this driver, the circumstances of the stolen situation, and you pretty much got it spot on. I mean, you alluded to the fact that this could be a situation that it was taken from a family member.
Yeah, it was just a lucky guess, though. I mean, when they said mental health issues, then it sort of gets you involved. You know, we have somebody with mental health issues in our family. It's really, really difficult. And so it was just a guess, though, trust me. But we've seen that in many cases in the past. It comes back stolen, and then it comes back, you know, in a different situation that it's a relative's vehicle or something like that. I think Jay may have said may have been taken from a group home or something like that. I'm not sure. But, yeah, that's the information he had. So the mother called. Whether it's the mother's vehicle or not, we don't know. If it was taken from a group home, then maybe the vehicle was actually stolen from this individual. And that was close. Boy, they just about had a spike strip deployed there. And now, are we seeing speeds really increase? You know, sometimes, as you mentioned, Mark and Colleen, yeah, boy, look at that. Once you do get into a situation where you get this individual hyped up and they're like, oh, my goodness, I got to turn. What's going on? Everything stopped. The police. And then they start driving more erratically. And that's one of the things I said a long time ago. I'm a little surprised they didn't just let her go. I mean, just have the helicopter follow and just wait until she stops. If she's not a threat to the community, if she doesn't have a gun, if she just has mental health issues, let her calm down. Let her get her on the phone. Let a family member talk to her. That's not the strategy, and maybe it's because they know more than we do. But it seems like by doing that spike strip and not being successful, I think that's the fourth time if I'm not mistaken, when that happens, the driving gets a little more erratic. She speeds up. She tries to get away from police. And the more she drives at a high rate like this, the more dangerous it is for everybody.
Okay, let's show you that video from just moments ago. What was the fourth attempt? Watch closely here, right in front of this semi-truck. The officers, two of them in the road, in front of the orange cab. Right there, it just did not get out far enough. The spike kind of toppled over itself and did not fully extend.
Yeah.
So that was the replay on the right side of your screen. Bruce Thomas on the phone with us, our law enforcement expert. Do you have eyes on that video? And if so, can you walk us through, you know, the unsuccessful nature, how difficult it is to get this attempt done successfully? We've now seen it 4 times not work.
No, it's very dangerous. And the fact that the CHP officer put himself in harm's way by doing that, luckily the vehicles around him had slowed. The semi-truck was alert to that. But it's very difficult to do. I remember one instance I did it on a robbery suspect vehicle in the Beverly Hills, West Hollywood border, and I ended up spiking 2 LAPD officers' cars who were right behind it. So throwing out a spike strip is inherently dangerous. It does take practice. It does take coordination. But going to Scott's point earlier, you know, okay, when you report a vehicle stolen, you have to sign a form that says, yes, I don't know who took the vehicle, it is stolen. So in this case, as Scott said, they seem to know who this person is. So I believe they just took the keys to the vehicle and left in kind of a hissy fit or a mental illness breakdown. And in this case, that's what they're chasing. They're chasing someone that may possibly be a harm to themselves or others, or basically a 5150 of the WIC code. But I don't think they're chasing a stolen vehicle at all.
Yeah, that's what's that is what's stressful. And again, you know, touching on mental health, it is very concerning. You feel for the families involved who deal with certain situations like this can accelerate any day and any moment can have it. But we know that the mother, we are learning, Bruce, that the mother called the CHP saying the daughter took the car or is in this car. We're not exactly sure if this was the mother's car, but we know that that the mother did call and, you know, ask the CHP. Obviously, I think that mother's trying to get her daughter to pull over more so than even the CHP, because if the daughter is, you know, in jeopardy of hurting herself or anybody else, you certainly don't want to see it as a mom, this happening.
Yeah, perhaps she gave more information and that's why they remain in pursuit. Bruce Thomas on the phone with us. Can I ask you a question about the spike?
I was just going to add real quickly.
Go ahead, go.
Sorry, Mark. What Colleen said, what every mother wants is for their children to get the help they need. And in this case, I fully believe that's what that mother wants, that wants to get her the professional help that her daughter seeks. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, I was speaking to the point of, and absolutely to your point, yes, you know, it's tough to see all this unfold. With the spike strips, as we get closer to the border, that experience that we have seen before from a coworker here who's been here for many years, a situation of flooding the road with spike strips. Is that something you've heard of? Would that be a tactic? Does that all make sense to you?
I do remember that pursuit your coworker was talking about. It's been years, but is it a tactic? Sure it is. Just as a tactic, they may load up some of the border crossing patrol vehicles in the lanes to prevent this person from using any of those open and or closed lanes to cross the border. So all ideas are on the table at this point. One of the other ideas they have to be floating is, when this stops, how do they take this person into custody? They're going to have to use force, probably, hopefully not, and this person complies with everybody's request, goes into handcuffs, and then they'll get them the professional help they need.
Yeah, it makes me also think about the unfortunate nature of other people getting caught up in the aftermath of this. Now that we're on the 5 freeway, coming through La Costa, you're going to be hitting Encinitas here momentarily. Should there be an incident here where the pursuit comes to an end, there's no other route to take, and oftentimes they may close not just one side, both sides of the freeway for safety, and then you got this massive traffic jam. Yes, it's a Monday, but still just a massive traffic jam when there's no other route to take. I mean, when it comes to freeways in this specific area, you're on the 5 and that's it.
That is where,
until you get further south and you have the 805, but for right now, this is your only option.
I have one more question, Bruce, by the way. We're talking about if this driver does in fact make it to the border, is there any sort of communication between, you know, the CHP and I don't know if they have like sort of a sister agency of the CHP. Now look at this motorcyclist right there. This motorcyclist is making gestures at this driver. Why anybody would want to get involved in this, I don't know. And I don't know if this is going to irritate that person, but obviously she is speeding up. I'm going to go back to you in a moment, Bruce, but Scott, this is kind of not great to see what we're witnessing right now.
Not at all. They're going to arrest this guy. I can almost guarantee you.
It's like a vigilante type situation, whether this person was aware.
They ran his plate.
Yeah.
Well, they ran their plate, and so they're not going to be too happy with somebody trying to get involved and maybe, you know, make things worse. But certainly, you know, you go by that vehicle above the speed limit with CHP vehicles behind you. That doesn't make any sense. So we just hope that that individual doing that doesn't make the person, this woman that's driving, you know, drive more erratically. You know, unless this ends in an accident, I don't see this causing problems on the freeway because the volume is pretty light. You know, we don't get down here all this often, obviously, but you know, we're coming down. We'll be in San Diego, you know, in the next 20 minutes or so, and I don't see any delays on the 5 north or southbound, and the volume is pretty light. So hopefully that's not the case. I wouldn't think it would end in an accident because we just don't see this individual driving very erratically. But this individual with a motorcycle, I mean, they're making things worse, and I don't think the CHP is going to be too happy with him.
No, and it's very unsettling to watch this motorcyclist. They probably have no clue what the person who is driving that minivan, you know, obviously the person in the minivan, they just wanted to get away and just get on their own way until their family member said, you know, please be alerted that, you know, my child is having a moment here and please, we need to get her into custody. But again, I would like this motorcyclist just to exit the freeway and not be involved because that sort of outside agitator doesn't need to be involved.
Yeah, maybe, you know, he said his piece, you know, he did what he wanted to do and now back off, you know, you did what you could. Clearly, you know, maybe frustrated for the right reasons, but no need to get into the mix of what's occurring here. It's just not wise for your own sake.
Fanning the fire there.
Yeah.
But, you know, Bruce Thomas still on the phone with us, our law enforcement expert. Bruce, I was wondering, do you think any part of the CHP is talking to any sort of Mexican authorities as well, saying, hey, if this minivan gets to your border, can you not let the person go through? That's what I don't know if they do that.
Yeah. Yeah, what they have is CHP has definitely contacted their farthest station on this side of the border to liaison with the border and customs patrol agents and officers in that area, just to let them know, hey, this is coming your way. Will it get there? We're not sure, but just so you put your blinkers on that, you know, this could happen. So they've definitely talked. And the border and customs patrol agents do have a liaison with the Mexican authorities on the other side. So, but ultimately, they don't want this vehicle to cross. They want to prevent it. Spike strips, loading up the lanes with patrol cars, or just blocking them are all possibilities.
There's endless possibilities. It does seem like. Scott, you're watching this pursuit taking place. Does it seem like that the driver has been going, accelerating a little bit through this area now that, of course, they hit the slowing flow of traffic is sort of going to force them to slow down a little bit. But it did seem like that motorcyclist did agitate them.
Yeah, but after the last spike strip where the officers got out into the freeway, then it definitely appeared that the woman driving the vehicle started to drive more erratically and a higher rate. We had her above 90 there for a moment. We got a pretty big angle here. If we bring up this speed tracker, I'm not sure what it'll give us. Or a moment it'll be a little high, and then it'll sort of settle into what it actually is. I don't think it's that high because of the angle we're at. But certainly you can see the vehicles are probably doing around 65 or 70, and when something like that happens, that's a little scary. They didn't see her coming up behind Bev, and they pulled into that lane. So it's certainly, it's not a pursuit that we would consider to be extremely dangerous, but if the demeanor of the driver changes, if they get trapped, if they get confined in some area, they have to make some abrupt moves to get away, she's shown that she can do that. She's been able to avoid 4 spike strips. She's been able to control the vehicle. She doesn't appear to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. She seems to have good command of the car. And we just see these same types of conditions on the freeway as I look out. We're coming up on the 805 freeway here in a moment. And that will be a moment when she's going to make a decision. If she stays on the 5 and heads really right into the heart of San Diego, down through La Jolla into San Diego, or she gets on the 805 and goes a little further to the east. And that's coming up probably in about the next 6 or 7 miles, I would say. So in the next few minutes, she's going to be on that split. And it's a big one. With the 5 and the 805 split, it's a pretty big spot.
Yeah, and that being said, it will be an easy transition for her to make that decision, just kind of veers off to the left.
Yeah.
For our viewers here streaming with us, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be doing a news break for ABC7 on air. So you will see that as well. So when that time comes, we'll pause for about 30 seconds to do that news update, which will be, I believe, on this pursuit to give our viewers all of the updates on what's occurring here as this driver, this woman, has now made her way all the way into the heart of San Diego County, has gone through North County, and soon will be approaching the 805 and the 5 split through La Jolla, and then eventually downtown San Diego, and after that Chula Vista and the border. Will she go that far? Does she have the fuel to make it? We'll have to wait and see, but certainly at this point, we see so much with these pursuits. You never know how it's going to end. And here is another unique one, not necessarily erratic or dangerous that we've seen, but the fact that it's gone this far into San Diego County, we don't cover it that often when that's the case, but there are those concerning factors. Yes, it was stolen from a family member, but with the mental health, you just never know. How will it end?
No, and no 2 pursuits are ever alike, as we've come to know in Los Angeles. We cover a lot of pursuits. A lot of our viewers are very well versed in pursuits as well. I know that I have friends, and they'll want to talk to me after. Why was that person doing this? And I'm sort of just as confused on why pursuits take on what they do. Like this one car that's in the carpool lane. Why aren't they just slowing down and maybe getting over? But they see all the CHP behind them.
Yeah, maybe in the age of social media, everybody wants their video, get a quick shot of it, and hey, look what I saw on the freeway today. Okay, stand by just about 10 seconds or so as you're watching us here on streaming coverage. We will join our viewers on ABC7 for a news update on this active pursuit in San Diego County.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Breaking news here on Eyewitness News. You're looking live at a pursuit that started in the San Fernando Valley, has made its way down to San Diego County. This vehicle initially reported stolen. There is a woman behind the wheel of that minivan. The CHP has tried several spike strips on the freeway. The driver has avoided all of them. We are streaming our coverage right now. Anywhere you stream ABC7 Los Angeles, join us there live.
All right, welcome back. We are still on this breaking news. You can see the pursuits taking place. You can see we are in San Diego County. We are on the 5. You see images from Air 7 overhead. We have Bruce Thomas on the phone with us, Mark Cotorobles, and I'm Colleen Sullivan. But again, we are following this pursuit. It's been going on for at least an hour and a half for us to be following it, a little longer, actually. What started, though, we know that a mother called the CHP to report that her daughter is in this minivan. We do not know who actually owns the minivan, but it was reported as a reportedly stolen minivan, and then the CHP got on it. We got on it on the 405 South at Getty Center Drive, and we have watched this driver just sort of stay within this, not just a little bit over the speed limit, from all the way from the valley.
We were talking about this option, I believe right here, she just took the option for the 805 South. She was on the 5 South, and she took that junction to the left, which should put her, there it is, you see on the mapping, the 805 South. So this will be further inland in San Diego County. So this driver at this point then would not be going through downtown San Diego, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, just the route that she is taking. Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert here on the phone with us, she had that option, and now on the 805, I guess at this point, it makes me question where it would end, because the 5 freeway is the one that's going to have the border option. I'm not fully up to speed on where the 805 would dump out as it gets further south. But, you know, update our viewers now. We're streaming live here on ABC 7, 2 hours into this pursuit. We've been on it for about an hour and 40 minutes. And again, we don't see this often as a driver just refusing, Bruce, to give up.
Yeah, in this case, the driver or suspect is very content to stay on the freeway. In this case, they changed and transitioned to the 805. Speeds are not horrible. I mean, they are 65 to 90, obeying the traffic laws, sort of. But they're very content just to follow this driver and not put any pressure on the female driver to do anything crazy or dangerous. I think the 805 freeway, and I'm not real familiar with that area either, but I think it does go through the outskirts of San Diego, the city itself, some residential, some industrial areas also.
Yeah, it certainly goes through the Chula Vista area. Clearly, our viewers here, you saw that our camera went black there for a moment. We are working to reestablish that shot, so stay with us here as this driver is deep into San Diego County now on the 805 southbound. So when and if we get that shot up, there it is right there. You see it back on the right side of your screen. Thanks for bearing with us. You have all these options. Where is she going to go? Is she going to finally get off the freeway?
And we have been talking about it. The driver has not been making many sudden moves. We did see the driver. The only times really where it got quite intense were the 2 times. You know, they've had 4 chances with the spike strips, but 2 of those she really decided she wants no part of driving over it, and she did make pretty good swerves to avoid getting tangled on any sort of spike strip. But again, we're watching this pursuit taking place, and it shows no sign of ending anytime soon. And, you know, we have Bruce Thomas on the phone, too. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, and I think Bruce spoke to this, and sorry if this is redundant, but looking at the map, again, the 805 and the 5, they will merge through Chula Vista, and both will end up dumping into the border crossing. So at any rate, if she stays on this freeway, this will, in fact, become a border situation that we have been discussing now for the past hour, and we're going to have to wait and see. So very interesting, the factors that go into that with, you know, you got U.S., you got Mexico, and not necessarily a partnership on how that's going to play out. Will we see more spike strips at the border before she gets there? Will she cross, and will officers be forced to see that vehicle cross into the south?
Yeah, I know. And Bruce, we were just talking about it a moment ago. Again, you know that, you know, Mexican authorities know that there is a slight chance that there is a pursuit happening, and it may wind up at the border. And now, wouldn't you say that there's some dialogue happening, at least some communications into what's going to happen next?
Yeah, I would say the conversations have started and are continuing at this point. Mexican authorities want to know, what are you chasing? What are the crimes? And really what you have is a misdemeanor, slap on the wrist, taking the vehicle without permission, and misdemeanor pursuit. So, I mean, they will get involved, obviously, if the person crosses the border. The handoff back to the U.S. authorities will take some diplomatic wrangling. I know it's not just okay, here's the suspect type thing. as we've seen in the past, only on a handful of occasions. So there's all sorts of things that are in play right now.
Yeah, and you never know if the person, you never know what prompted them to get in the car and take off. But we don't know if the person has a cell phone. We do not know if the person brought their handbag or their ID. So that might also complicate matters if they do, in fact, get to the border. Because I can't imagine you being able to cross over to the Mexican side without an ID.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Mark, Colleen. You just brought up a point. You touched on it just a little bit. If they have ID and say they are a naturalized Mexican citizen, are they so inclined to hand that person back?
Oh, right.
Very interesting.
I don't know the answers to that.
Yeah.
And we don't know we don't know the person driving. We only know that the CHP is aware of who the person is behind the wheel.
Hey, Bruce, what do you think? I mean, again, this is not a situation where it's a murder suspect or anything like that. But, if there were some of those factors involved, would law enforcement in Mexico be more inclined to get involved and assist on stopping this woman? You mentioned that likely there's that communication going on with CHP and Mexican authorities of, okay, who are you following? What are their crimes? And right now you're saying essentially it's a misdemeanor right now. If there were felonies, if there was more danger involved in the pursuit, would they be more inclined, in your opinion, to intervene?
Oh, Mark, very much so. I mean, they're going to want to know, what are your crimes? How dangerous is this person? Are they going to get involved? If they cross the border, yes, they're going to get involved. No question about it. Their use of force policies, I don't know if they're similar to ours. I just don't know how they operate or what things they can and cannot do. But they will get involved and they will take this person into custody in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's just, I know that all of us are watching this thinking, just pull over. I mean, they're not driving, crazy quickly, or, it doesn't seem like they're putting a lot of other people's lives in danger. Again, you cannot get into the mind of anybody here, but we do know that the CHP, they may end up switching out as well. It is, I always talk about it, but it's remarkable. The CHP know exactly what they're doing, and they really are so well educated on pursuits. And I mean, it's remarkable, but what they're probably saying to each other is, please just pull over.
Yeah, yeah. Here on the 805 South, I believe shortly, the driver, this woman's going to be passing the 8, which runs east-west, and then through the North Park area, and then ultimately into the vicinity where you're going to be paralleling downtown San Diego. I'd say the border, should she continue on 20, 30 minutes, maybe 30 minutes further south if there's no traffic? I mean, at this rate, she could be there pretty soon, and really just going along at quite a clip here. These drivers, we talked about this earlier, they likely have no idea as this van comes up of what's occurring behind them, and the fact that this has been ongoing now for more than 2 hours. Even when she changes lanes here, it's not erratic. And Bruce, it goes back to that point of, why not just give it up? You think about all of the other part of this is just the resources. And when you think of resources, the money that this is costing CHP to have all their drivers or their officers involved in this pursuit.
Mark, you bring up a really good point, and I know we've talked about it before, is the drain on the resources of law enforcement. In this case, you have 3 CHP vehicles involved and the use of a helicopter. I know when you arrest for a DUI, you do a cost sheet breakdown, and that's the time and the effort that the law enforcement agency has spent in arresting this person and processing them. And they actually will bill them for that time.
Really?
I know that's something that's been talked about in the pursuits to monetarily, penalize them. But yeah, it is a drain on resources.
It's got to be part of the conversation that when it's over, like you said, was this worth it? The cost, which is ultimately to the taxpayers, right? All of this. And, if it ends safely, if it ends with nobody being hurt, I mean, that's paramount. That's number one, right? You want her to come to a stop. You want no one else involved. You don't want any weapons involved or officers injured. So that's first and foremost. But then it's just you got to weigh all these options, right? And if they do that review, that's interesting to know that, yeah, they do look this over, and that's got to come into play with their training, right? But ultimately, it's somebody back in the office, right? The watch commander who's calling the shots on this. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You have a watch commander or a supervisor in the pursuit itself, and they're listening to what the officers are putting out, what the helicopter pilots are putting out. And if it does become too dangerous or just not worth it, they're going to cancel that pursuit. I have canceled pursuits in my time, and, you know, the officers aren't happy about it. But ultimately, when you sit down and talk to them, hey, it was just too dangerous. We weren't going to do this.
Right.
So, yeah, that's something that they're talking about.
I'm just wondering at what point would they say, okay, you know what, this isn't worth it. It's just not worth it. This is not, I don't know if they think that this person could be a jeopardy to the community, but again, it seems like this pursuit has sort of stayed the same cadence, except for when there is a spike strip happening. But again, I'm wondering when they talk to each other about this, and they say maybe we should have, because you could see this car, they're just kind of weaving. Now the CHP is thinking about getting in front of that minivan. I don't know if you can see that, Bruce, but there's a moment where obviously our view is being obstructed by a bunch of trees, but there's that moment where the driver was sort of weaving a little bit, and then the CHP officer looked like they were going to get in front of it. I guess nope, they're right behind it again.
If Bruce, I can ask you this, because we were talking to Scott Reif earlier about the pit maneuver tactic. From your experience, explain to our viewers why they don't do that right now, because the vehicle's going, 70 miles per hour?
Yeah, you know, as Scott has said earlier, there is an operational area of the pit maneuver. You know, you don't want anything over 40 or 35 miles an hour. Slow speed is better, because what you want to do is it's a controlled accident, meaning you're coming up on that vehicle into the rear quarter panel area. You want to hit it with your vehicle in the front quarter panel area of this patrol vehicle and spin it out of control to where it just loses traction. You know, the mechanisms of the vehicle come into play, and the vehicle is not drivable anymore. But it's not as easy as everybody thinks. I know CHP is very well versed in it. I know LAPD, sheriffs, and some other agencies are more inclined to practice it, but it is very, very difficult. It's a controlled accident.
Yeah. And by the way, for our viewers, they may be noticing that it's getting a little more difficult to locate this pursuit because we are in some airspace restrictions. So Air 7's having a little bit of difficulty to try to maneuver around to try to get to this pursuit. And we're hoping that they'll be able to kind of meander around into a safe area for them to fly over and reestablish our I've just heard from our executive producer that we are going to be pulling our coverage as well because we are unable to follow the pursuit any longer.
Yeah, and we say that with this being maybe 20 minutes or so from the U.S.-Mexico border, and this driver, this woman who stole a minivan from a family member with a mental health issue, has been leading officers on this pursuit for about 2.5 hours, beginning in the Sherman Oaks area, down the 405 and onto the 5 freeway, and then the 805. Thanks for staying with us along the journey. We are going to do our best to get all of the answers and clarity coming up for Eyewitness News at 3 p.m. and the conclusion of this pursuit to get some answers as to how it came to an
Going down or stopping, just continuing on a free-flowing freeway for hours this afternoon. So we will keep on top of it, but for now, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Land at the airport that just kicked us out. I'm not sure. Land at the airport that just kicked us out. I'm not sure.
It looks like it's smooth sailing all the way down to LAX. I don't see any delays on the South 405, maybe a momentary slowdown from time to time, because that's when it gets dicey, Colleen and
Land at the airport that just kicked us.
It looks like it's smooth sailing all the way down to LAX. I don't see any delays on the South 405, maybe a momentary slowdown from time to time, because that's when it gets dicey, Colleen and Mark. You know, it's when the suspect gets into a situation where they can't continue. Sometimes we see the driving get extremely erratic.
You're right, Scott, right there. I know that I believe that the CHP gave it over to the LAPD West LA Division. So we will see who is that the CHP behind them, or is it the LAPD? It still looks like the CHP right there, still taking the lead on this pursuit.
I'd be surprised if they hand it off as long as it's on the freeway like this. If it gets onto the surface streets, you know, LAPD just is going to be so much better at handling it, and the CHP more than likely will keep it. There is an LAPD helicopter overhead, though, and I think a sheriff's helicopter may be en route as well. We want to back off a little bit if we could here. We don't want to get too steep on it. But it looks like right now it is CHP. It's pretty hard to put out a spike strip in conditions like this. It's possible, but usually that only happens when they can back up traffic behind the individual and then get a patrol car out front, or if the individual drives slower than the rate of traffic, because it'd be really hard to throw out a spike strip and try and get the tires flat on that vehicle in traffic like this. But we're seeing a little more than the speed limit. About 75 miles an hour has been the max that we've seen at this point in time. But it's tough. You know, you could have a lot of people inside that minivan, and CHP may know, but at this point in time, we don't have any more information than just the driver. But obviously, if there was, you know, several people inside, it really endangers a lot of folks here.
Absolutely. And as you say that, Scott, it looks like, I don't know if that's a person, but something there in the passenger side of the vehicle, not a person, some kind of bags or something there. So yeah, at least the driver here in this minivan, again, reported stolen on the 405 South. It is already past sunset. And it's interesting, you spoke about the potential here of spike strips. I think it was just a week ago we had a similar pursuit where officers actually did deploy on a freeway, but it was on the shoulder. But yeah, so very difficult to figure out how to do that, and of course not impact other drivers on the road. But Scott, I mean, you've seen it all.
Yeah, you know, I just heard a report from Jay. He monitors the CHP scanners, and he told me they're going to try and set up a spike strip at Santa Monica Boulevard. We're past that. I don't know how that would be possible, to be honest with you. If the vehicle was in the carpool lane and you had a patrol car in the center divider, you'd be able to throw it out, but you can't throw out a spike strip and give flats to a bunch of other vehicles when the car's in the center lane. So I don't really think that under the conditions we're seeing right now, that is going to work. If the suspect gets into the shoulder or the carpool lane or the right shoulder, then they might be able to try that. Here's another patrol car coming up pretty quick behind him, too, at this point in time. So we assume in situations like this that the CHP has a lot more information than we do. They probably have some sort of idea who may be in that vehicle. Maybe not. It comes back stolen. So, you know, certainly they're running their checks right now. They're talking to the registered owner, things of that nature. We're on the 405 southbound. We're coming up on the 10, and it looks like the suspect is not going to transition onto the Santa Monica Freeway, but it's going to continue southbound here down through Culver City and, you know, down towards LAX and Inglewood.
Yeah, and Scott, you know, we talk about these, sometimes it's just the routine traffic stop that then triggers a pursuit because the suspect may actually be connected to something else. Like, why would the car be coming back as a stolen car? Was it connected to any sort of possible crime that led up to this pursuit? That's why it's always so stressful when you watch these pursuits and the person just doesn't want to pull over. But you know what I'm watching, obviously, it's remarkable. I know that the person is driving over the speed limit, but so many do in this area of the 405. But a lot of cars were sort of passing it on, you know, on the left side, on the carpool lane.
Yeah.
I don't know how people are responding to this, because when I see police in my rear view mirror, I get over.
Yeah, it's curious when you're following a pursuit and the vehicle's doing the speed limit or a little more than the speed limit, and then somebody comes along and passes them. But I've seen that in the past. It's actually almost comical in a way that they would do that. But right now the suspect's basically not swerving in and out of traffic, doing about the speed limit, 65 up to 75. But in some cases, that's just the flow of traffic in this area, right? 75 miles an hour. Now, we're going to come up on a situation here where it's going to be really difficult for us and the LAPD helicopter that's flying overhead to continue to follow this vehicle, and they will not let us cross the extended center line at LAX. They have traffic lined up for 15 miles on final, coming in from the east, landing at LAX, and there's no way they're going to let us disrupt that. Or, oh boy, what is that? Was that a spike strip
May
they
have
tried to
been.
go around?
May have been.
That may have been.
Wow.
I don't know where it came from, though, unless a patrol car somehow got it out there.
Maybe they were on the northbound side.
Extremely quick, erratic movement. Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah, we're headed south, so that would have been tricky to throw it over the K-rail. But that was interesting, although I don't see the tires going flat. But they don't go flat immediately. If it did hit a spike strip, it would take a little time. They don't want it to blow up and then all of a sudden have the vehicle, swerve out of control and hurt somebody. So if it was effective, we are going to see that here in the next couple of minutes. But it certainly was an erratic turn. I couldn't see the spike strip, but it could have been that. And I was explaining what's coming up ahead. There is some heavy traffic on the 405 southbound around Centinela, that's south of the 90. And then that's the route that we cannot continue to follow. We can cross over LAX at 2000. We'll still keep a glimpse of it, but we won't be able to be right overhead. And it does look at this point in time, from what I can tell in my monitor, it doesn't appear that they have a flat.
It does not. No, it doesn't. And the person inside the car as well, the driver, doesn't look like they are extremely stressed. Sometimes we see them fumbling around with phones and, flailing their arms and everything, but it looks like they are pretty calm. But again, it makes me nervous, by the way, Scott, when you talk about doing a spike strip on the freeway and you see that really quick, movement that driver made. That does put a lot of people in jeopardy. I mean, that car could flip.
And you wonder if it's going to change the posture of this driver. And again, we're not sure if this is a man or a woman behind the wheel, but I'm confident our team is working behind the scenes probably to re-rack that video of the potential spike strip. So when we have that ready, we'll get it for you. Scott, when we see things like that occur, in your experience covering these, do you often see the posture of these drivers escalate and change? Because things can certainly take a turn in these pursuits.
There's no question. It's so dynamic. I mean, you just never know, right? You'll see that happen, and sometimes a person will give up. Sometimes a person will get really erratic and start driving crazy. If that was a spike strip, I just don't know where it came from. I mean, it's not in the carpool lane. It was in the fast lane, and I don't know where it would have came from. I didn't see a CHP vehicle on the shoulder to have to throw that spike strip out. So it'll be interesting when we get that re-rack to take a look at it to see if that's what it was, or I don't know, maybe the driver just hit the steering wheel real quick, looking at the phone or something. But it'll be interesting.
Very possibly they were avoiding debris, but who knows?
That's possible, yeah. We're going to see here in a little bit, or you'll see our shot is going to be really tough for us to keep. We're coming up on LAX, and we're looking at the 405 freeway southbound at Hughes Parkway, and we'll have to fly right over top of the freeway at 2,500 feet. That's our path to fly over the freeway, or over this area to fly over LAX, and then we can follow it on the freeway, but at that point in time, there'll be issues where we will lose it. You'll see just the angle as such, and then if the suspect continues onto the 105, or continues south on the 405 past the 105, of course, we can get back over the freeway and follow it there. But we haven't seen a lot of erratic driving. In some cases in pursuits like this, they'll just back off. I mean, depending on what's going on, depending if they might have some idea who the suspect is, if they can get them later. But if it came back stolen, it's still stolen. They don't have any information on the driver, and the driver's not driving too erratically. They'll probably continue to follow, and then things get dicey when you get off the freeway into the surface streets, because then you just have people walking, you have people on their bicycles. Of course, it could just be so extremely dangerous. But these speeds right now don't seem all that dangerous. The suspect, for the most part, staying in the same lane and doing about the flow of traffic.
Yeah, the vehicle right now passing Howard Hughes and La Tijera on the 405 in the Westchester area. And Scott, right now we do have that video from about 5 to 10 minutes ago of the, yep, there was a spike strip right there.
Did you see it?
And I did see it right here, slow motion. There it is right there. It was in between the carpool lane and the fast lane, and the driver did avoid the spike strip. Unclear if the CHP was simply on the shoulder next to the HOV lane or if they were potentially staged on the northbound side of the freeway and got over the median. Yeah, I think it was an officer on the northbound side.
How did they stop people from hitting that spike strip behind him as well? So that was interesting. So unfortunately, it didn't work. If it would have, then we would have had a vehicle that was going very slow at this point in time on a rim almost.
According to our producer, and I think I caught a glimpse of it as well, it was tough right as it was passing. It looked like it was a motorcycle officer who was assisting there in deploying that spike strip. So they gave it a shot. Again, we don't see that too frequently on the freeway at full speed, but there's the proof right there. Good work by Air 7 and our team behind the scenes. Scott, you mentioned here about potentially backing off, giving up in terms of law enforcement. That being said, let's say that this driver, the van, has a full tank of fuel. The fact that it's not otherwise erratic, there's otherwise nothing overly dangerous about their driving. Do they potentially have time on their side and they just follow this person and let it play out?
Yeah, we just heard the report that at Century Boulevard, I think that's Century right there, they might try another spike strip. So it'll be interesting. We'll open up a little wide. We're basically now south of LAX. The vehicle's coming southbound towards us. They'll come up on the 105 freeway here in a moment. There's Manchester, so they're crossing that. That would have been about where the spike strip is if they were going to do one. But certainly if it was dropped from a motorcycle, I've never seen that before. That would be a first. There's a CHP vehicle on the shoulder there. And so at this point in time, it's interesting. If they continue 405 freeway south, we'll be going around the South Bay curve. But there really doesn't appear to be much in the way of traffic on the 405 south, all the way down from what I can tell down into Torrance, a little slow around Crenshaw. But overall, it looks like this type of volume on the freeway, this entire stretch.
It's pretty remarkable that this stretch of the 405 is so light compared to what many of us see on a daily basis. And I'm also, if it were yesterday, there was such a dense cloud cover over this area. So you really are getting some really incredible, visibility of this car, this minivan. Again, we don't know if there is anybody other than the driver in this minivan. And that was remarkable to see the spike strip. But again, if they can do a spike strip closer, it's got to be such a delicate balance because there's so many cars, the volume of cars on the freeway for them to get the right car and not another car tangled up into one of those spike strip is also, I would think, Scott, would be very delicate to do.
It's not easy because usually they throw it out and they pull it right back. So the vehicle behind it doesn't get a flat, right? In most cases, they throw it out, they toss it, they wait till the car goes by and they pull it back. But there was no officers there. Somehow they just got out in the middle of the roadway and then they vacated that area just to see if that vehicle would hit it. And unfortunately, they were able to see it and then swerve around it. We didn't see it happen at Century. We're on the 405 freeway southbound now. We're coming up around Hawthorne Boulevard. I think they mentioned, or we heard they may try it again around Hawthorne Boulevard. So it looks like their strategy right now is the spike strip and then to stay behind the vehicle. They have a helicopter overhead. At this point in time, I don't think they'll get too aggressive because it's not a threat to the community right now. We're not seeing a driver that's so erratic, but these things can change. I'll tell you that much. We've followed a lot of pursuits where you'd see demeanor just like this, and then all of a sudden the suspect would start driving crazy and erratically. But we haven't seen that yet, so I don't think they'll be too aggressive in this case. They'll just continue to follow it and see if maybe they can get a spike strip on that vehicle, get the tires flat, and then at that point in time, they'll know that it's going to be slow enough. Now, boy, they are running a traffic break on the 405 freeway northbound. I think that is Crenshaw or Hawthorne Boulevard. So that's interesting. It may be a separate incident altogether. Maybe an accident on the 405 north that I'm looking at. I don't know why they shut down all lanes of the 405 northbound at Hawthorne, but you will see it in a moment as we come southbound. I don't know if that's some strategy.
Scott, let me jump in. I think it's because they're trying another spike strip at that location. We're getting word from our desk. Yeah, they may be trying another spike strip, and so that, of course, allows them more space to do that safely for the officers. So let's watch closely. You got our eyes and ears there to see what you see as we approach Hawthorne.
It'll be interesting. I don't remember them shutting down a freeway in one direction to throw out a spike strip before. So, some new techniques, some new strategies, and the suspect's coming up on this in just a moment. So traffic does start to slow, unfortunately. You shut down all lanes northbound, and you're going to see the vehicle's going to hit slow traffic here, and that could make it a little more difficult. And the reason is everybody's slowing down to look at the northbound closure. You see on the right side of your screen, you're going to see it in a moment. The freeway is closed, so everybody's slowing. Go back if you would. Now that's enough. And then we can look in here to see if there's a seat. Go pick up the vehicle for me, would you please? I want to see the vehicle.
I do. My heart goes out to those people on the other side of the freeway who are going to get snared into this pursuit as well. Ooh.
Yeah, it won't be long, though. I mean, as soon as this vehicle goes by, they're going to let traffic go, and there's no delays on the northbound side, so that was wide open. They're not going to be delayed for long. But if it's going to happen, this is where it's going to happen. But because traffic has slowed down so much, because they closed the northbound side, I think it's going to make the spike strip that much more difficult because the suspect will have time to move and get away. There they are.
Yep.
You see, they tried it right there. You saw the officer at the top of your screen. And not going to work. When you shut down all lanes of the 405 freeway northbound, all the southbound traffic slows, and then the vehicle's traveling at such a slow rate of speed, the spike strip's just not going to work.
Right, and they can make some more decisions. And it is interesting. I was thinking maybe that driver...
well, my bad. I'm hearing the spike strip is successful. So let's see. I didn't see that.
I didn't see it either.
I definitely did not see that they got it.
It didn't appear.
Well, that came across on a scanner report, so we'll know here in a moment. They certainly will know in a moment, but I certainly didn't see it. That was a great job if they got it.
Yeah, if anything, it'd be on the left side tires, because certainly the right side did not see any impact there.
Yeah.
Still going 75 miles per hour right now on the 405 South, passing Artesia into northwest Torrance, now up to 80 miles per hour. And Colleen, you spoke to this earlier. The posture of this driver, I mean, they're just 10 and 2 on the wheel. They don't seem to be bothered by anything that's going on.
And you see all of these CHP officers behind them, and that is not flustering them. And again, a lot of people, Mark, you know a lot about cars, but I don't think a minivan would have run flats. So it's not as though these tires can deflate for a long period of time. They usually go out pretty quickly.
Yeah, one would assume. Looking here at some notes that's coming through right now, we're now getting clarification, perhaps not negative on the successful spike strip. They thought that they got it, but now they're saying no. And that kind of makes sense to what we saw from the air, that there was not successful. The driver moved over to the right too much, and there were too many cars, and he or she kind of got over to the middle lane. I think just the distance was too far for that officer. You saw them kind of pulling back in that moment.
Yeah, the other one was close, obviously, because they were traveling at a high rate of speed, and they didn't see it till the last moment. But when traffic stopped on the 405 South because of the northbound activity, then the suspect just sort of figured out what was going on and saw everything that happened. But it's a little insight in what happens. We report on these pursuits, and we get a lot of information. And even the CHP and the LAPD, and now we have a sheriff's helicopter overhead, sometimes you get information and they think something happened, or they think it's this, or they think it's that, and it turns out to be something else. So in that case, they actually thought initially they got it. Obviously, they didn't. But, we're not seeing extremely high speeds on this pursuit. As I mentioned earlier, I think they're going to be fairly non-aggressive on this. I don't know that they'll continue to throw out spike strips. I guess they'd like to get it stopped. But right now, we just have this minivan, this gray Toyota minivan, came back stolen on the 405 South out of the San Fernando Valley, and just basically driving the speed limit, not really trying to swerve in and out of traffic. Not really endangering anybody at this point in time. It'll be interesting, there may be more than just the driver inside that minivan. We can't tell. They may have some idea who it is at this point in time. I'm sure they have a lot more information than us. But right now we're on the 405 southbound. We've left the South Bay curve. We're on that little portion of coming down into Carson towards the 110 freeway. And from what I could tell, the South 405 looks good all the way down into Long Beach.
That's pretty remarkable. Again, we're talking about the traffic because it's not always the case on the 405, as many of us know, especially going through the South Bay. But again, because the CHP are staying on this minivan for so long, and the minivan is not showing to be driving erratically, it just leads me to believe that it can't just be a stolen minivan. There might be something connected to it that, again, we don't know about. I just hope there's no
We did get some new information. It turns out they do know who the driver is. Whether it's stolen or not, like I said, we get some information. Sometimes it comes and it goes, and it's accurate and it's not. It just happens too quickly to verify. That's what police believe. But they do believe it's a female, and they know who it is, so it is a female. More than likely, they got that correct. But they're having mental health issues. So it sort of, exasperates things. It makes things a little more difficult for them. But they do know who it is at this point in time. And fortunately, we're not seeing this person drive too aggressively.
Yeah.
I was going to say that view through the windshield, it did have the appearance of a woman behind the wheel. So good to get that information out, Scott. Again, if you're just joining us here, 11:42, you're looking at this live pursuit from Air 7, a minivan. We've been following it now for the better part of 20 minutes or so. It's gone past LAX, now approaching the South Bay into the San Pedro area. So there will be some decisions to make, whether they stay on the 405 or take some other routes as we get further south here. And Scott, how many officers currently are in pursuit? I mean, they're not giving up whatsoever.
It looks like there's 3. Why don't you open up out of that shot? And there's another one even further back. So there's 3 patrol cars, and then we won't go, stay on the van. We won't go further, about another quarter mile behind that. There's another patrol car. I've seen a lot of patrol cars on the on-ramps. Looking, I think we're coming up here on maybe Carson, Main Street on the 405 southbound, and Avalon, actually. And I don't see any officers in the center divider. I don't see them setting anything up to try and do another spike strip. They may. That may be the strategy for them right now, to try that again, but it's pretty difficult. As he mentioned initially, I didn't think a spike strip was really going to be all that effective when the vehicles like this. It's just really difficult. If the person's in the carpool lane and they stay in the carpool lane, spike strip kind of works, right? You could throw it out real quick, maybe from the opposite direction. If they're in the right shoulder, it really works, because you get a patrol car, officer to hide behind a K-rail and then throw it out real quick when he gets there. But when they're in the number 1 lane and you have that carpool lane and you have several lanes to the right, it's really difficult to get them with a spike strip. And they're not going to try anything any more aggressive than that, I don't believe, because right now we're not seeing anything really endangering the public. I mean, 80 miles an hour, that's still pretty high rate of speed, but you can tell the normal flow here is over 70, and we don't see the suspect, swerving in and out of traffic. If that was the case, they might be considering, more aggressive tactics to stop this. But right now, I don't think they will. And I can see down in the Long Beach and almost into Seal Beach now, and I just don't see much in the way of heavy traffic. Some pockets of slow traffic, but nothing that's really going to slow the suspect down a lot.
Yeah, and it does seem like they are keeping a decent distance between themselves and the car in front of them. Just a moment ago, there was one car that was sort of about to slow them down pretty well, and the car got over. You would not know that there is a pursuit happening with that minivan, because the minivan is not driving at crazy high speeds, making erratic moves. Yeah. I do feel for the person, though, if they are suffering from a mental health emergency. I do wonder if that does take the CHP a little bit back to figure out how are we going to approach this, because Scott, as you know, Mark, as you know, the CHP, they are so well choreographed with their pursuits that they have their watch commander telling them what they should do, how far forward, behind, how many cars should be in their rear view mirror, because you don't want it to trigger this person any more than what they're going through right now, but you do want them to pull over.
Certainly, yeah. Mental health, not a crime, but the stolen aspect is. So you got multiple things at play here, but that does come into being a major factor when this pursuit comes to an end, how they approach it. Absolutely. Negotiating tactics, getting the driver to get out, surrender, throw out the keys. That, of course, is the end goal here. And we watch and we wait. 65 miles per hour here, 405 south. Scott, the driver, the woman here, is going to have some options. It would seem the most logical for them is just continue straight on the 405. Perhaps once we get down to the 22, that's an easier turn for them to take if they want to take the 22 further into Orange County. Some options, but definitely the 405. Plenty of road here for this driver just to continue.